I watched part of the video, and David is smiling the whole time. Very good. You enhance the international coverage.
Where's it posted?
We're in Mimer Hay.
It's on YouTube, but he's posting it on the Shul site.
Shul?
Not the Shul.
Yeah.
What YouTube?
We are learning. We'll give you the Mimer claims in a minute. Let's go further. We're just finishing this Inyan of Ruth wearing Bigdei Shabbos when she approached Boaz. And after from there we learn out the halachas of Bigdei Shabbos. So it's very real. Why the Bigdei Shabbos? The Bigdei Shabbos represent to us the Bigdei Adam Arishon, which were the Chosnos, or which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made for him. And they represent to us and they remind us of the begodim that Yaakov put on when he received the bracha from Yitzchak. And what happened when Yaakov received the bracha from Yitzchak? The Torah says Yitzchak embraced him, and the Yarach Reach Hasoda, he smelled the Reach Hasoda, and they gave him a bracha. So we see that the whole bracha was totally in the Reach. The whole bracha was totally in the Reach. So the Pashat of Pshat is that he couldn't see. He was confused by the two senses, right? The Kol Yaakov was the Chush Hashmiya, and the Mishush was Yadayim Bigdei Eisav was the Chush HaMishush, and he had two conflicting pieces of information. Yitzchak had. Do I go with my touch, or do I go with my Shmiya? Kol Yaakov Yadayim Bigdei Eisav. He had the suffix. Okay, so suffix brachas lahakil.
You don't make a bracha.
You don't make a bracha. Suffix brachas lahakil means you don't make a bracha. He was so medactic who to give the bracha to. Shouldn't have given him a bracha.
He should have made a bracha on the sun when he smelled.
Yeah. And then it says he smelled him, and that was paishat the suffix. So what did he smell? It's Reach Hasoda. Rashi says, Reach Gan Eden nichnas imay. Reach Gan Eden came in with him. It's mashmois of the Reach Begodim. Why would the Reach Gan Eden come in with him? Because he was wearing Begodim of Adam Arishon. So let's just go read inside a little bit. Valkain. I'm sorry. Ulevashtam. She wore them kishabasa leboyas livnois mimenu shalshela zu shel malachim. How exciting is that? That the union of Boaz and Rus at this moment was the binyan of shalshelas malachim, the whole chain of kings, which would start with David HaMelech. The makor, the shirish of it was, as we know, as everybody knows, was Rus and Boaz, but what we learned here is that wasn't really the makor. The makor, the shirish of this started much earlier, and it started in stone. Matzasi is David Avdi, Ephoi Matzasi is David Avdi, it says the Medrash, Bereshis Rabbah, Bestoim. The makor of it was in Stoim, with light, and Ashes light, and the Benois light, and from there came out this Masa Tatua, this really horrible sounding Maisa of the Benois light. From there came out Ammon and Moav, and the Medrash says on this that two wonderful Metzias found in Benois light, Rus HaMoaviyah and Naomi, who was an Ammoness. So all of this was coming together, and it was either represented or even deeper, it was manifested in the Bigdei Shabbos that Rus wore. Because Bigdei Shabbos had the irvuv of Adam Arishon Koydem Achet, Adam Arishon Acher Achet. It has the irvuv of, there's like such a pashut pshat to it, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is upset with us because we did a chet, and He's clothing us. That's the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's embracing us at the same time. So there was an irvuv of Tov Ra Gufa in that like if your kid does something, goes against your will and does something wrong and gets hurt, God forbid. And while you're bandaging him, you're yelling at him. What'd you do that for? I told you not to do it. You're not a good child. Bandaging him. Is this hurt? Is this okay? There's a combination of Irvuv of Tov Ra. There's Ava and Kas Kilul at the same time. And this was the Irvuv of the Kasnais Or on the simplest level. Laharai Sloi, so Rus wanted to show him Dover Zeh, this exact point. Sheba Ye Shirish Dover Zeh, that in her, she wore her Bigdei Shabbos, because in her was the Shirish of this point. Look at the Shalshelos HaMelachim. David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech, Yafeh, Menashe HaMelech, Lo Kol כך Yafeh. The Irvuv of Tov Ra, like, why do we have such bad kings in history? Yoshiyahu good, Chizkiyahu good. And then there was Melech Asher Lo Yasa Tov Bein Asher. Oh, back and forth and back and forth. There's this Irvuv. I mean, it's hard to say these words, but there was some Sodom there. There was some Amar Namayav there in these Melachim. There was some Yehuda and Tamar. There was like a whole spiritual genetic mixture that went into the Malchei Yisrael. The Irvuv could bring Mashiach, is Mashiach. But the Irvuv could also, if you're not careful, bring you down. So you have very, very strong Malachim. I mean, nobody was parv in the Malchei Yisrael. Nobody was parv. Yoshiyahu was 12 years old. He became the Melech Yisrael. Like, where did this come from? And he became a Baal Tshuva, and he was machzir the door to Tshuva. Where did it come from? It came from the shirish of Toiv. Menashe HaMelech l'asara bein Hashem hargu. Haragas Yerushalayim peh peh. Killed his grandfather Yeshayahu. Not from the Bnei David, from the other side. Killed his grandfather Yeshayahu. How bad is that? How horrible is that? It's the same spiritual genes. But the pshat is that there's an Irvuv of Tov Ra here, and it comes out, it manifests itself in the Malachim. This is why don't we just have straight Malachim? Why don't we just have like good kings? What's the problem? The answer is because the whole idea of Malchus is to be Mesakin the Chet of Adam Arishan. Adam Arishan created an Irvuv of Tov Ra. That's what we have to be Mesakin. We have to be Mesakin the Tov Ra. Why do we have a Yetzer Hara? Because that's what we have to be Mesakin. We don't want to be Noach Ish Tzadik Tomim Haya B'Dei Eisav. And that's what Yitzchak will explain on Shabbos. That's what Yitzchak, that was his problem with Yaakov. Ish Tam, again Tomim. Just like Noach was Tzadik Tomim. Not that he didn't like Tzadikim. Everybody likes Tzadikim. If you want to get a bracha, you go to a Tzadik. But what we're talking about is who's the infantry guy that can go through the battle of Toiv and Ra, the Irvuv of Toiv and Ra, that Adam Arishan placed into the Bria, and to be Mesakin that. That's a whole different level. That's Malchus. And that's why, that's what Rus and Boaz what was going on over here. This could not come from it has to come from a Kupa Shel Shrotzim. Couldn't come from Toiv. We learned Avram Avinu Gufa. What's the difference between Avram Avinu and Noach, Ish Tzadik? That Noach came from Shes, his father, his mother. But his children came from Shes and Cain. So it became all of a sudden the job to raise Cain. Had to be Mala, the Messias of Cain. That was Avram Avinu. And he had this sort of aggression, this campaigning, this ability to change the world. It also came from Cain. So it requires the Irvuv of Tov Ra.
You look at the history of kings in Europe or anywhere. How do you become a king? You kill another king. So or even mafiosa people want to be the godfather. You have to knock off the next guy. So clearly, these people who want this type of Malchus leadership, they have this killer instinct.
Right, which can be very good or very bad.
Right. So the balance is, if you want to have this Malchus, you have to have that instinct in you to be. But you have to leverage it for good. If you want to be a Jewish king.
Let me tell you something that I didn't see in any of them of Harshim. Take it or leave it. The lashon of the Gemara for this is, Ein memanim parnas al hatzibur Elohim came as a kupa shel shrotzim al gapo. Kupa shel shrotzim. David HaMelech had to live with the fact that his grandmother was Rus. Ammon, Moav, Peretz, Yehuda, Tamar. Spelt in Yichus. Something we would be, like if we were making a shidduch, today, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. That's all we talk about is that David HaMelech came from Rus. So if you came from David HaMelech, like we wouldn't make a shidduch. If you know you're a benach or ben from David HaMelech, don't make a shidduch. You have some Amun Moav. It's not the right shidduch to make. So this is called in Lashon HaGemara Kupa Shel Shrotzim. Isn't that interesting? Lashon Kupa Shel Shrotzim. What's a Kupa Shel Shrotzim? How would you translate it? Like a cage full of shrotzim.
Yeah.
Like what's in that box? Shrotzim. I mean, we're shrotzim, sheret, shekets. That's what we're calling Rus. Shrotzim. Kupa Shel Shrotzim. I was thinking that we're learning before about Rameir. Rameir, Kosnois Or, with an aleph. Rameir, he taught his Talmidim to be Mataris Hasheretz, B'kuf Nun Drachim. Loira Isi, I didn't see this in any of the Mefarshim. I'm just saying that Halidavarhu, that Rameir was busy being Mataris Hasheretz. The Tosfos asked, Pilpulei Shel Hevel, is he being Mataris Sheretz? And he himself, says Reb Tzadok, came from Nero and Kesar. He himself was a ben Eisav, came from Nero. He himself had in him an irvuv of Toiv V'Ra. And he himself learned from Acher. So he was busy being Mataris Hasheretz. What does it mean? That the bria of the sheretz has in it a requirement, a built-in requirement to be mevarer the toy from the ra. It has an irvuv of toy v'ra in it. Even a sheretz, the most despicable, frightening part of the creation, a sheretz, has in it an aspect of toy. Rameir didn't pick a sheretz. He said just arbitrarily. He picked the sheretz because that is the ugliest, the most despicable. Like, what are we afraid of the most? We're afraid of the nachash. These are despicable. He picked the most frightening, bria, sheretz, not a bee, a sheretz, and it makes you tameh. Well, you're matayer as a sheretz. So I'm feeling it's the same kupa shel shrotzim that's Hamamana Parnas al Tzibur. Have to make sure there's a kupa shel shrotzim. There has to be not just I have a bad past. Shloi tazuach daito. I love the Gemara says that I shouldn't become a balgaiva. Okay, if you don't want David HaMelech to become a balgaiva, so give him like a little pimple on his head, and the whole time everyone's saying so beautiful. Yeah, but he has this growth on his like why does he? It's a kupa. Why does he have to come from Rus? Shloi tazuach daito. And every because we need to, the whole avoida of Malchus is to be mevarer the toiv v'ra. That's the taich, I believe, in Rameir. Kosnois or. He took or with an ayin, made it or into an aleph. So says Reb Tzadok, she came to Boaz with his Bigdei Shabbos. The mistama asvar gam hu hayoyodea lahariach reach begadim shebibigdei Shabbos. Mistama, Boaz also knew how to be meriach the Bigdei Shabbos. Shehem me'ein Bigdei Adam harishon. Ki nizker la'el devada yesh behem gam ken reach begadim. Lahayoidim, lahariach, to those that know how to smell. Now this sounds like, well, it's pushing it a little bit. That Boaz knew the same fragrance as Yitzchak knew, Mistama. Is it Mistama? Devada yeshvem gam ken reach begadim. In other words, just like Yitzchak, it's not we're saying now that Yitzchak smelled the begadim of Yaakov and therefore gave him a bracha because he couldn't use his eyes and he couldn't, and his ears and his feeling, his touch was deceiving him. It was dafka the reach which was mavara for him. And Mistama Boyaz also had that reach to find out whether Rus was just Ra. She could have been just Ra, coming from Ammon and Moab. You're not allowed to marry somebody, right, from Moab. So Moab, below Moavia, needs a limud. What's the difference? Somehow or another, he had to feel that there was a tayvara. How did he know? Through the Bigdei Shabbos. Shebeguf, who are veganus. In the goof of a person is the R. There is an R, neshama, within the person. Veganus v'nelam ba'olam hazeh. It's hidden. Umitzad halavush hamasker etzem ha'or v'nikla b'rak hareach. The goof can hide and cover the neshama, and you can't see the neshama always. Unless somebody's very pure, you can't see their neshama. And you can't necessarily hear the neshama, and it's confusing because it doesn't always match with the maisim of the neshama. So Hakol Kol Yaakov Bigdei Eisav, very confusing to try to become a makubal and be able to touch people up and touch up their neshama. Very difficult job. Very difficult job. We've got to go to college for many, many years to be able to do this. Elamai, what does work? V'hariach. The chush hareach. That's what we learned from Yitzchak. The only thing that's going to work is the chush hareach. Guf who are v'gonus v'nelam ba'olam hazeh umitzad halavush hamaster etzem ha'or v'nikla b'rak hareach. The only thing that's going to work is reach. If you are zoche, if you are privileged to develop the chush hareach of ruchnius. Okay, Nemar zed dereach begadav b'Yitzchak shehargashas hareach u'misharshay darga d'yira. So somebody with yira shemayim has the chush hareach. I told you the story of the Noda B'Yehuda, no? The Noda B'Yehuda, in an effort to make peace with the Hasidim in the city, he was a misnagid, Yecheskel in Prague. Pragerov. He wanted to make peace with the Hasidim, even though he saw it wasn't good for the community. So he invited the Rebbe of the city to come to his house, and he's talking to the Rebbe in a meeting, and while he's talking, a woman came in with a shiloh. She came in with a chicken with a shiloh. She said, I'm sorry to disturb the meeting, but it's urgent, I have to cook. He said, bring it here. And as she was walking past towards the Noda B'Yehuda, the Rebbe was sitting there, he says, it's a kosher. So he said, didn't even look at it. He says, I smelled it. I can smell what's kosher and what's not kosher. He says, you don't even have to look. Did this make the Noda B'Yehuda a bigger mistake, or did it make him a chassid? So the Noda B'Yehuda said, famously, the Noda B'Yehuda said that the Gemara says that La'as and Lavai is going to come a time that Gemara is bemoaning the fact that you're not going to find Mishnah Berurah, Halacha Berurah, or Mishnah Berurah Makam Echad. You're not going to find somebody who's a Lamdan and somebody who's a Poisek B'Makam Echad. You're going to go to one base medrash, there's going to be a bunch of Baalei Halacha, another one's going to be a bunch of Lamdanim, but you're not going to find a Poisek that's a Lamdan. So the Gemara says that what's going to be, it's going to be Isha is going to be Mistoiveves, probably it says she's going to dray around the streets, Pita B'Yada, she's going to have a Lachmaniya in her hand, and she's not going to find Halacha Berurah, Mishnah Berurah, Makam Echad. So Noda B'Yehuda said, what is she walking around with this piece of bread? A bread is mamash, not a chicken, there's nothing to see. So Noda B'Yehuda said, now I understand, in case there's some Rebbe that wants to smell it. The only thing you can do with pas is be Reach. So there's an inyan of Reach, your Shemayim has a Reach. He said Mashiach, Bar Kochba. When Bar Kochba said, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Tzadik Zayin, the Gemara says that Bar Kochba announced, Ono Mashiach, I am the Mashiach. Yatsu Chachamim Livdoi Seisa. So the Chachamim went to see him, and they said, you say you're Mashiach? He said, yes, Ono Mashiach. That's what the Gemara says. So they said, we know, based on a pasuk in Yeshayahu, that if you're Mashiach, you're Meiriach Badoyin. It's Lashon of the Gemara. Meiriach Badoyin means to say, Rashi says, that you can smell the din, like this Rebbe. So let's see if you're Meiriach Badoyin or not. Because Yeshayahu says that La'asad Lavai, when Mashiach comes, everyone's going to walk in front of Mashiach, and Mashiach is going to know, and he'll sniff out whether this person is a tzaddik or a rasha. Scary.
Does it tie into Yitzchak with his reach?
Of course, that's what we're talking about. Tie-in, that's what we're talking about. So the pshat is, so they said to Bar Kochba, well, let's see. They tested him with the Chush HaReach. It's before in the Gemara. They tested him with the Chush HaReach. He failed the test. So the Gemara says, V'katluhu. They killed him. Machlekes in the Rishonim, what's the pshat V'katluhu? Some say that they were moiser him to the Romans. Some say they killed him. And some say, Boy Shavuzalai. They were mvaza him. He said, Oich Mer Mashiach. It's not Mashiach. They killed his career, so to speak, as Mashiach. Whatever it is, the point is it was all totally, at the end of the day, because we're blind, and our Chush HaReach and the Chush HaKol are conflicting, so we're blind and confused. That's what we are. So if somebody gets up and says it is Mashiach, okay, no low. So the only thing we have left is the Chush HaReach. Why do we have the Chush HaReach? Because that comes from Yerushalayim. So I want to read you quickly. I couldn't find my sefer, but in the Bnei Yissaschar, he says as follows. I wish I had a copy for everybody. He's talking about, he has a Bnei Yissaschar, Chelik Beis, discusses every month of the year. So, and why it's called what it's called. The month of Adar is called Adar, sounds like an Adra. An Adra is a besamim tree. A besamim tree. So it says the Bnei Yissaschar as follows. Hine tira. Kol ha-chushim niskarim eitzel chet adam harishon. Ki kulam ishtamshu sham b'chetoi. Every chush, every one of the senses was used by Adam Harishon to do the chet of the Eitz Hadas. Batera ha'isha, first she saw it, chush hariyah. Batikach mipiryoi chush hamishush. Batoichal chush hatam. Vayishmu, they listen to the nachash, chush hashema. Right, 4 senses. What's missing?
Smell.
Chush hareach loy niskar sham. And the mice of the chet of the Eitz Hadas mentions all the chushim, but the chush hareach. Hine nira mizeh, says the Bnei Yissaschar, asher chush hareach loy nifgam ki inoch hachushim. It was never affected by the Eitz Hadas. He loy nishtamshu by us.
That are wonderful smells.
You're talking about did they use, did they?
Right. So how is it?
It wasn't the kavanah. Al kain kimsa, says the Bnei Yissaschar, ad hayoim chush hareach ruchni haneshama nenes mimenu haneshama nenes mimenu v'loy haguf. The Gemara says, "B'zeh yunach lanu ma'ida miboylan b'gemara brachas memdalad minayin shemevarchin al hareach." How do we know we make a bracha on the reach? Dichsiv kol haneshama tahalel ka ezu davar haneshama nenas mimenu v'loy haguf zeh hareach. Such a strange limud. Kol haneshama tahalel ka, which means what? That every single person of the neshama is davening to Hashem tahalel ka. From here we learn that al kol neshima uneshima you have to be mahalal l'shem Hashem. So the neshama breathing. So there's such a mitzias of being mahalal Hashem on a neshima. That's how the Gemara learns. That's how the Gemara learns this pasuk. Al kol haneshama tahalel ka ezu davar shaneshama nenes mimenu v'lo yaguf zarei achad kan. V'hinei says the Bnei Yissaschar hu lefela be'enai. Pella. Hare stam amru Chazal. Chazal say asur lehanos v'nai l'mazev b'lei bracha. We know you're not allowed to have hana from this world without the without a bracha. V'asku sham zois b'svara. The Gemara says it from a svara. V'asmicha akrai. The Gemara says it from Sukkim. This is the beginning of Ketzad Mevarchim. La'Hashem haaretz amloya koydem habracha. Haaretz nasan livnei adam achar habracha. V'im kein lama titztarech limud al birchas hanas hareich. Why do we need a special pasuk to teach you that you have to make a bracha on hanas hareich? If it's hana, it's hana. Adrabah. Davar she'ein mevarchen olav tzrichanon al isban aman ishtana. The only kasha you would have is why wouldn't you make a bracha on birchas hareich? You don't need a limud to tell you to make a bracha on hana. We make a bracha on every hana. You only need a limud to tell you why you wouldn't make a bracha on something. For instance, why don't we make a bracha every time we breathe?
You never breathe.
Hmm?
You never breathe.
Right. Or do anything else.
Couldn't catch your breath.
Going hard the ikshu achronim, catch it. Going hard the ikshu achronim. The achronim asked the kasha, Lama ein mevarchen al shmias kol zemer. Why don't you make a bracha on a niggin? Right? You appreciate a niggin? Why don't you make a bracha? You can have more. You can have more hana from a niggin, from a zemer, than you can have from a piece of cholent. I mean, all right, that's going too far.
Cucumber.
From a cucumber. Cucumber, you make a bracha. Zemer, you don't make a bracha. What's up? I heard him speak about why you make a bracha on smoking. Somebody smoked. In the olden days, people smoked. So very interesting. How do you say smoking in Yiddish? Anybody know? It's reicheren. Reicheren. We had a different word. Hikshu lama ein mevarchen al hanos hamishkal. A person is with his wife. As hana. Intimacy. Why don't you make a bracha? Those are kashas. Why don't you make a bracha on a hana? Avahula daiti the yadua. The pshat is it's yadua inin habracha. The pshat na bracha. Listen carefully. This is Bnei Eisav. Idi la bracha hu lebarer hatoiv min hara. Shinisarvu bechet adam harishain be'etz hadas toiv v'ra. V'kol hachushim niskru sham. When we're making a bracha, we're being misakein the chet of Adam Harishain, who used all of his senses to be able to use all of his senses to do a chet. Now we have to take that same chush hariyah, chush hatam, chush hashmiya, chush hariyah. We have to take all of those things. We have to take all those things and we have to be misaken. What don't we have to be misaken? The reyach, because he never used the chush hareyach. So if he never used the chush hareyach, there's no tikkun necessary. V'asbir l'cha ha'inyan ba'achila. He says, let me explain it to you. I'll give you a mashal from achila. A mashal. Umimenu takisha l'ashar. From this you'll understand the rest. Says Bnei Eisav, ha'meichel ha'muksham asher adam oichel. You eat some food, eat a sandwich. Hine, what happens biologically? Ha'toy va'mufchar v'hayafa nivrar v'nasa dam ba'adam. Oisiv loichayusay. The good part of the food goes into your blood system, and it becomes that which you live on. Adam hu nefesh. V'hara, and that which is waste within the food, nidchel chutz, leaves the body. V'hinei chush hareyach loy nifkam kol kach. There's no birur in the body for what you smell. I wonder how there's a birur by the chush hareyah. You see what you see. Or shmir.
But when we learn
you don't only you see what you want to see. So as far as the mental capacity, you can choose what you're gonna from what you see and what you hear, what you're gonna believe. With Chus Tarayach, it's hard to not believe.
I think this is the pshat.
You smell it.
I think this is the pshat. It's so interesting, the cognitive dissonance and the way it works, that you can hear something, you can see something, It didn't happen. If you didn't want it to happen, it didn't happen. Just look at the way the world is looking at the Gaza war. Hello, like we're all saying, hello.
It's based on previous experiences also.
Based on your experiences. So the mind, in fact, is the cognitive procedure is actually mevarer, the toiv v'ra, very much like your digestive system is mevarer the toiv v'ra, and it's saying this I want to hear and this I don't want to hear. This I want to see and this I don't want to see. I did see it, I didn't see it. Seeing is believing, no way.
It's like a witness in court.
That's right. And two people could see two different things completely.
Exactly,
I mean,
right.
two people could see, two honest people even,
Yeah.
could see the same thing and they're reporting completely different. It's a pella. Like I said, just look at the news. Everybody's looking at the news these days, just look at the news. Same thing, same Baisa, completely two different takes on it. Chush HaReach has no beer. Chush HaReach has, you smell what you smell. It smells good, it smells bad. It's interesting, by the way, the Chush HaReach, they say, I'm not a baki in this, but they say that, sometimes you can smell something and it can bring you back to your childhood in a very, very serious way. More so than the Chush HaRiyah and the Chush HaShmiyah. There's something about the Reach which has this koach. There's no birur in the Reach, and since there's no birur in the Reach, Hava Amina that there's no bracha on the Reach. Hava Amina b'samim is Reach. So Hava Amina that there's no bracha comes the Gemara and says, no, I have to give you a pasuk. You have to learn it from a pasuk. That's what he says. A gewaldige Stückel of the days. He's going to say.
We're still Hana.
You're holding.
But it's still Hana. You're still getting Hana. So why?
But there's no need to make a bracha on a Hana where there's no birur. That's what he's saying. Al pi yisoid, you don't make a bracha on Hana. You make a bracha on being mevarer the toiv from the ra.
How you explain of calling and marlins every bracha kilu mal?
Only Hana, which is a bit.
It's not called Hana.
What is me'ilah?
Why is Mila you're taking away from the kedusha?
You're abusing. You're using it wrong. Stop like while we're here. Appella on the Gemara. The Gemara says in Lamed Hey brachas that kol anenem min olam hazeh b'loi bracha kilu ma'al. Ikadamri kol anenem min olam hazeh b'loi bracha kilu nena mikotshei kadosh mikotshei shemayim. Oto davar, no? What's Ikadamri? Kol anenem min olam hazeh b'loi bracha kilu ma'al. What are you ma'aling? Mikotshei shemayim. Ikadamri kol anenem min olam hazeh b'loi bracha kilu nena mikotshei shemayim. All right, that's the last one. It's two shaynos in the Gemara. Ikadamri. What's the nafkamina? Ikadamri has to be voice of something.
Mila could be a moment.
I mean, the Pashat Pshat is, Mila's mitzad the Gavra, and Kotshek Shemayim is mitzad the Hefta. Like, what's the problem? Is the problem with not making a bracha? Just work with me on this for a minute. The problem with not making a bracha that I'm doing something wrong? That's, in other words, like, I'm doing something which is violating my neshama, or is it that's me'ilah? I've done an aveira, or is the pshat is that I was machal l'chefza, which is in front of me? Have some covet. What are you eating this with? What are you being moil in the hektish for? So there's like two things that are happening when you eat kachim shalai bezmanai or shalai b'kaimai. There's two things that are happening. One is that I'm violating myself and I'm violating the kachim. So the two ikadamris in the Gemara is addressing like what happens when you eat without a bracha. Is it the pshat that Shabbai l'Hashem aristos halivdei adam acher bracha? So it's hektish. If it's hektish, what are you eating hektish for? It's not yours. What are you eating hektish? Or is it the pshat that you're violating your own? Or is it the pshat that you're violating your own neshama? Like that's. Lafit Varenu, it's very interesting because the pshat in making a bracha is you have to be mavar the toy from the ra. Says the Bnei Yissaschar. To mavar the toy from the ra. So that's before I take it, before I internalize it. I have to be mavar the toy from the ra. So is that more? It's more of a me'ilah. What are you taking food? It's hektish. Why is it hektish? The two l'shaytis. Why is it hektish? It's food. Some guy's going to come and eat it. A rabbit's going to come and eat it. But it's a chasarn in the gavra. You're here in this world to be mavar toy v'ra. You with me on this? It's a chasarn in the gufa. V'chein timsa she'ein by hafrado bir beguf. When it comes to reach, back to the point, ein by hafrado bir beguf be'esek hanasei v'alkeinu davar sha'neshama nenas by hakayemes lahad. So the reason, so beautiful, the reason why reach is a davar sha'neshama nenas by is because the neshama is not nena from something unless it's pure. What is the neshama so have hana from? Something which is pure. Farganigin for the neshama, if it's pure. The only thing that can be pure is reach. What?
There are plenty of impure.
You don't make a bracha. Reach ra, you don't make a bracha. You don't make a bracha on reach too.
But it still differentiates it. It still be to some degree.
No, but not only you don't make a bracha when there's a reach ra, because the neshama is not having hana, but you're not allowed to even daven when there's a reach ra. You're not allowed to have any divrei kedusha when there's a reach ra. Why? Because the neshama is in struggle right now. When you're in a place of reach ra, so the neshama is struggling.
So the reach and the neshama is a straight line to Adam Kaidim Chet. And the other four chushim are death.
No. Adam Achar Chet, the chas nasor. Not the or from before the chet, but the begodim. Yarach is reach begodim, it was after the chet. After the chet. It's so meduyak, by the way, by Yarach is reach boigdav. Al tikra begodim ala boigdav. To Rameir. The Tzaddik says that Yitzchak saw Rabbi Meir. Reach boigdav, he saw Rabbi Meir that came from Neir and Keser. That's what he saw. That's why I loved him. Kitzayid b'fiv. Loved him. So the point is he was able to be mevarer in the Caesars. He was able to find a Rameir. Rameir, how you retire Sheretz, he found the Toiv in the Sheretz. So, like let's not lose the flavor of this.
There's no chisarn in the neshama mitzad the reach.
I don't know what that means. I don't know those words.
The other chushim were involved in the chet, and so we have to meet.
The reach was never involved.
Right.
The reach was never involved, so it can be pure. So if a person is mayriach, a pure smell, or if you have your shemayim, it goes both ways. Your neshama is working correctly. Your chush hareach can smell dinner, and Mashiach, who's the Yerushalayim, can smell like this, like the Rebbe. There was this idea of being able to chush hareach to be a chush of tar. Let me just finish this nekuda because I have 5 minutes. I'm sorry. So beautiful. Akayemes la lo yagufa nifsad. V'kiven shekvi adoyme ein sarach hana azul lebirur. Sal kedai techamina. I would have thought shein sarach levareh. There's no reason to make a bracha on reach because you're not being levareh anything. Al kin shricham limud b'fnei atzmai shenistarach ledav levareh. V'atam nira. So why can you make a bracha on reach? So either you could say, like you're saying, well, there's such a thing as a reach also, but we're never able. By the way, does anybody ever have the experience of smelling something and say it smells a little bit bad, it smells a little bit good? I don't know if there's such an experience.
It's either one or the
other. You could say, look, it sounds good on the one hand and doesn't sound good on the other hand. Left-handed compliment. Say, I like what I'm hearing, but it's a little bit off. You can be mavar, taste. Tastes good, has a bad aftertaste. Or it tastes curiously good. I mean, it tastes good, but it really doesn't taste good. Why am I enjoying this? There's like a lot of things.
Interesting taste.
Yeah, interesting, right. I mean, it's like bitter is also a taste, which is geschmack. If you drink, if you
have bittersweet. You can have bittersweet.
Bittersweet coffee. There's developing a chush of something bitter unless you kill it with spoons of sugar. The tom of coffee is a bittersweet taste.
Well,
but by reach, there's no distinction.
But the Keturah has some bad in it too.
Oh, it lends to the good. That's very interesting. That's a good point. I'm not going to. V'atam nira Kimin boisem ahu davar mukshim ba'olam hazeh olam asiyat tzrichim lebir v'alkein tzrichim levar. So kol soif, since the reach passes through olam hazeh, it does need some kind of a beer, but I'm not going to go into it. The main thing he says I wanted to bring out is that Adam Arishan didn't mess up our chush hareich. We could be holy this way. When it comes to Mashiach, who talks about the chush of Mashiach, it doesn't talk about that he can see 10 miles away, but it talks about his chush hareich. Namar by chush hareich, Yeshayahu Yud Aleph Pasuk Gimel v'heirichai b'yiras Hashem. Or they tested Mashiach in Gemara and Sanhedrin. Are you Mashiach? Meiriach vadoyin. Hu pulas hachotem shu pulas haneshama hakayemes load. It all comes from the chotem. V'hispoinen b'zegam. I was going to stop here, but since you asked, v'hispoinen b'zegam kein tam lebesamim b'mitzvah Shabbos. From this we can understand what's going on with besamim and mitzvah Shabbos. Ki inyan sudas mitzvah Shabbos nikra halvayas Hamalka. The Suda of Mitzvah Shabbos is called Lava Malka. We are escorting the Shabbos Malkasa out. Shavar Arishonim Shemizois Hasuda Nena Hayatzem Luz Sheyesh Lekoyach Hakiyum Shloi Nena Me'etz Hadas Be'erev Shabbos. Very simple. The Luz, the Gemara says, was not Nena from the Eitz Hadas. Me'ata Tavin HaRemes. Aroitzi Shinis Kayim Yoch. The point is that we're taking the chush hareich and we're eating lava malka, which is we're addressing on Motzei Shabbos right after Shabbos that which is pure within us, and creating we're starting off the week with chush hareich, and we're starting off the week with lava malka, which is mahana the etzem luz, which was not nana, the Gemara says, for the Eitz Hadas. Okay, that's an Indian by itself. And that's the Darga D'Yura. Okay, so what did we learn? We learned that Yitzchak was left with his chush hareich. His chush hareich was the same chush that Mashiach is going to have to be able to smell that which is good and that which is bad, to do this kind of a birur actually. It's a reach, it's a hanasha, neshama tluya boy. It goes straight to the neshama, the chush hareich goes straight to the neshama. So Yitzchak had this koach yorach as reach begodav, and he saw it even in the reach boigdav, even in the rishoyim that came out of Eisav. He was still able to find. So that answers his question. That's why do we make a bracha? Because there is a birur. You have to decide what you're going to smell. By yorach as reach boigdav, but you can smell the whole thing and still find some good in that smell also. He found Rameir in Nero. He found Unkelos. He found Gedolim. He found David HaMelech in Stein. It's the chush hareich, and then this is all represented in the Bigdei Shabbos. He smelled the good, which was hidden within the bad. So that's what I'm saying. But we do make a bracha. Hava, you don't make a bracha because how could you be mevar the reach? Nothing is happening physically to the reach. It all goes in aromatically. But in ruchniness you can be mevar.
Just let me Yosef Shista. Okay, this is from Yaakov. Okay, he has a shaita. I guess it's Eisav that's sending him into the Avera. There's a connection to Eisav. But to say that the Iker that he's spelling like Rabbi Meir, that is coming from Edom. So
it doesn't say it by the smelling. It says he loved Eisav Gitai B'Fiv Ra Rameir.
I'm saying, but what if you're learning Pshat that he smelled Rabbi Meir, so he smelled it mitzad. Is it Esav's not there? So is the Pshat that he got to smell something that had shachas to Eisav? Or just something, or is he smelling it through Yaakov?
What I'm understanding here is that begodim, by nature, cover are a cover. It's a chitzoni, and therefore, with the Bigdei Eisav, he was able to smell reach boigdav.
In other words, they have a Shem Bigdei Eisav.
called Bigdei Eisav.
Ah.
Hey, this, learning to have your shoes, fire in the oven.
Ah.
Like, come on already. Like,